would you like to read the 7 realities?
We have prayer going on here, so
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
Ashok you read. Sorry.
I will
Mamaji.
read. I will read it.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, Mamaji. Thank you. I'll just put the screen.
Ah,
Mamaji, can you see? Thank you.
yes, yes, yes. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following seven realities. The only real existence is that of the one and only God who is the self in every finite self. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without exception, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with the perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Thank you, Mamaji. And now we will proceed with part 2 of chapter 6, the ways to the path. And we're on page 166. But before we start the commence the reading, uh, I would welcome if any thoughts, observations, questions uh, from this chapter. A very profound chapter, and has got a lot of correlation with whatever we have read earlier in discourses and God speaks. And some part may be common as well, but ultimately it's beloved Baba's precious pearls of wisdom, if I may call. And please, anybody, please.
So I think you can read once again the listed seven things.
Yes,
Then go ahead with it.
definitely, Mamaji. So I'll start with the whole paragraph so that we get the context.
Yes, 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 yes.
And yeah, so I begin. Uh, the perfect master does not give something which is not already within the aspirant in latent form. He unveils the real self of the aspirant and enables him to come into his own rightful divine heritage. Complete surrenderance to the God man is not possible for one and all. When this is not possible, the other high roads which can eventually win the grace of God are: 1. Loving obedience to and remembrance to the God man to the best of one's ability. 2. Love for God and intense longing to see Him and be united with Him. 3. Be in constant company with the saints and lovers of God and rendering them wholehearted service, avoiding lust, greed, anger, hatred, and the temptations of power, fame, and fault finding. Fifth, leaving everyone and everything in complete external renunciation and in solitude, devoting oneself to fasting, prayer, and meditation. Six, carrying on all worldly duties with a pure heart and clean mind and with equal acceptance of success or failure while remaining detached in the midst of intense activity and selfless service of humanity without thought of gain or reward. So we had stopped here, Mamaji. Uh, Thanks for reminding us to go through this. Um, any
Sorry to interrupt, Jai Baba. I just
yes,
wanted to put on the live video if
okay,
for
Yeah,
everybody's
sure, I was going to
darshan,
tell.
like, you know.
Yeah, great.
okay,
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank
perfect,
you.
good timing, good timing.
Ashok, can you stop sharing? That way the
Yeah, 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 okay,
screen will
yeah,
show up.
yeah, yeah. Okay, one second. One second.
And you can pin it. You can go to the
Yes,
three dots next to thing and you
yeah,
can
yeah.
say pin. Yeah.
Mm, Pin,
Uh,
pin.
the
Can you just
camera.
guide me? I'm there in
Huh?
three dots. One second. It
Yeah.
went,
So
went
one of them should
gallery?
say
No, not
pin
gallery.
now.
No, I don't have pin. Show device settings. One second. No.
No, the three dots against Khalid's name.
Oh, against college name. Okay, one second. Yes, pin,
Yeah,
pin, pin,
yeah.
pin for me, right? Okay, done.
Yes.
Thank
Oh,
you.
it's only for you. Then you have to share your screen.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay,
Okay.
leave it. Everybody can pin locally,
It looks
make it
like
a
pinned
bigger.
already. So full screen for me. Thank you.
Oh, you can see it. Good. Jay Baba. Jay Meher Baba.
Yes, there's Baba. Jai
Jay,
Baba.
Jay Meher Baba. Wow, what a delight.
Yeah, Baba.
Jai Baba.
What a delight.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Khalid bhai, don't go too close. We don't like it.
Yep. Is Sanjay ji around?
Uh,
No, he's not on the call right now,
no, he's
as
not.
far as I can see.
Okay. Sanjay ji was being fondly remembered by Anil Srivastav. Happened to meet him today.
Okay.
Nice.
Can anybody see the screen? I can't see the screen. Mehraban. Khalid, are you showing the screen? Are you showing the?
Yes, we are seeing it,
Yeah.
Ashok. You're doing
Yeah,
something
yeah.
on your
Now I
level.
can.
We are all able to see it. Yeah.
No, now I can see Jay Baba. That's Baba's wish. Anyway, I can see now. Jay Baba. Wow. This is phenomenal. This is really great, Khalid. And everybody is getting a glimpse.
Subkara.
All Baba's wish.
This is Baba's wish.
That's him.
There are quite a lot of people there. Yes.
Yeah, it's a morning Aarti. As I said, today is Dhuni Day.
Oh,
There's
yes.
a lot of people here. So Dhuni is at 5:45 today.
Okay. Okay. And there'll be a live, I think, online
It
transmission
will
as
be
well.
live, yeah. Yeah, it will be a live thing. The sunrise of Baba Hill.
Khalid bhai, we can't thank you enough for thinking of this and actually doing it between 7:30 and 9 when we are anyway live. So thank you very much for walking back through this route and
Jai
giving
Baba.
us this glimpse. Jai
Jay
Baba,
Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai
All
Baba.
Jai
Baba's
Baba.
wish.
Thank you so
Jai
much, Khalid
Baba.
Bhai.
Jai Bye.
Khalid bhai, thank you a lot.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot. And everybody is
Thank Baba. Thank
Jai Baba. Thank you. Thank
Jai
you.
Baba.
right.
Jai
So,
Baba and thank you.
so moving on, if
Yep.
anybody's got any uh, observations uh, or comments and phenomenal takeaways, the 7 ways in which we can be on the path.
Yes, the video was created goosebumps all over me. Thank you.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. And can you see my screen? Selfless service of humanity without thought
No,
of.
I'm seeing only K.
Okay, 1 second. Please give me a moment. Please give me a moment.
Yes, yes.
Jai Baba. So the floor is open for any comments, observations, or questions. Since there are no questions, I'll move on with the reading. So it's page 166, part 2, chapter 6. In the end, all walks of life and all paths ultimately lead to the one goal, which is God. All rivers enter into the ocean regardless of the diverse directions in which they flow and in spite of many meanderings they may take. The high roads are important because they take the pilgrim directly to his divine destination, avoiding prolonged wanderings in the wilderness of complicated byways in which the traveler is so often unnecessarily confused. So there is a fast track here. The various states and stages through which the pilgrim passes on his journey to God realization may be broken down into 3 phases, which the Sufis called tariqat, marifat, and hakikat. In the first, divine knowledge is experienced on the planes of energy as inner intuition, inspiration, and conviction. There is also a footnote. Let's read that footnote. Not to be confused with ordinary intuition, inspiration, and conviction, as inner sight is not to be confused with ordinary sight. In Sufic terminology, this glimpse of divine knowledge is known as tajurbat e tariqat and represents a transition from ordinary understanding to a condition of inner experiences of smell, sound, and sight. During this first stage of unfolding knowledge, there is a far deeper conviction about spiritual realities than is possible through the usual understanding of the worldly man. However, even this conviction is not unshakable. It bestows only a mild and wavering degree of divine knowledge. The pilgrim has now only started on his spiritual journey and must face many trials. While becoming established in the first stage, many aspirants are unable to cope with the ordeals they encounter as inner sight is opened. Whatever the pilgrim encounters here is for his good, and if he has a master's guidance, he need not fear that he will be lost. Although at the climax of the first phase, tariqat, which is the fourth plane, the one real danger of risking a fall does occur through possible misuse of the extraordinary powers associated with this plane. So we have seen. I'll stop here. We have also seen the the threshold of the fourth plane in earlier uh, you know readings as well. During this first phase, the aspirant is disengaging himself from enmeshment in the material realm of action and ascending to the realm of energy. This is accomplished through the gradual dissolving of the multitudinous desires which chain his consciousness to the material world. Although the individual is now constantly dependent upon the finer realms of energy, mind, and divine consciousness, even while immersed in the realm of matter, still he cannot live freely in these realms because of his continued enslavement to the gross world. Moreover, he cannot receive in any appreciable measure the renewal which divine consciousness would pour into him due to the resistance offered by the entanglements of the dense material plane upon which he lives. Nevertheless, it is divine radiations, merely, meagerly felt though they be, which enable the matter ridden mind to face suffering and make the effort to rise in the higher realms of energy and mind. So entanglements some and of the dense material plane upon which he lives. That's the reality. At last, weary of enslavement to the gross world, the individual decides to free himself from the enticements of matter. In this moment of irrevocable decision, the individual cuts himself loose from the bondage of gross desires and ascends to the realm of energy. His will now reinforced, the individual prepares for a release of vital force far greater than was ever available to him during his bondage to the gross. The activities of the individual are now more powerful, for his actions are unhindered by the low voltage characterizing the energy of the gross realm. Often, the aspirant becomes absorbed in the new powers now available, and he realizes that he can perform miracles and other phenomena. The tendency to wish to perform miracles or to judge spiritual developments by performance of such spectacles may persist for some time. Even spiritually advanced persons find it difficult to outgrow this habit of playing with illusion. It should be clearly understood that attachment to miracles is only a continuation of the habit of playing with illusion. It is not miracles, but inner illumination which will one day bring true freedom. So I repeat this line, very profound. It is not miracles, but inner illumination which will one day bring true freedom. In the realm of energy, the increased capacity of the individual to receive the downpouring of divine radiation gives him a greater sense of spiritual power, a larger measure of knowledge, and a deeper sense of fulfillment, although these are as yet intermittent and fragmentary. The individual continues to carry on the physical plane activities of eating, drinking, and other automatic activities of physical life. But he is no longer the tormented slave of unfulfilled desires rooted in the physical functions, although a recrudescence of desires in a milder form is still possible. So, recrudescence means the new outburst breaking out again. So, I'll stop here. If there are any observations, comments, or should I continue? He is now subject, though, to new forms of restlessness. In desperate search sorry, for enduring peace, he determines to ascend to the still higher mental sphere upon which the realm of energy fundamentally depends for its sustenance. Having crossed to this realm, the pilgrim is now at the second phase of the journey in which he begins to see the light of God. Unfolding divine knowledge now amounts to real illumination, and the aspirant is given knowledge of the past, present, and future. He is now firmly established in the divine path, and there is no longer any risk of his falling or losing his true illumination. There are many trials, but he faces them with conviction, confidence, and resolution. Wow. This second phase occurs at a point which is called Kubuliyat, or God's acceptance of the pilgrim. Here, being endowed with illumination, he knows what trials lie ahead of him. But he also knows that he cannot fall from this fifth plane and is aware that he can meet any situation adequately. At a certain time, the pilgrim passes to the point described by the Sufis as marifat and sees God as he is. This is spoken of as being the sixth plane of ascent of the individual in his conscious return to the One. It is in the mental sphere as was the fifth plane. In the sixth plane of in the sixth plane, the freedom, joy, and illumination that the soul experiences are all greatly enhanced as the mind is in direct contact with transcendental divine consciousness. The bliss experienced in this higher realm surpasses all possible pleasures experienced in the realms of matter or energy. This is now absolute. There is now absolutely no resistance to the direct infusion of the unceasing radiations of light, power, wisdom, and bliss that overflow from the Godhead. The individual's happiness is unutterable, his vision undimmed, his power unrestrained, his peace undisturbed, and his understanding suffers no slightest momentary impairment. He knows no lack of any kind. He continually sees God as he is. All that the individual enjoys in the mental realm is still not self sustained, but is continually supplied by the never failing emanations from the transcendental Godhead. Although the mind is completely surcharged with the heavenly abundance which descends upon it from God, nevertheless, it constantly recognizes his utter dependence upon the renewal which comes to it from above.
Ashok, can I interrupt here?
Yes.
I am not able to make out what is meant by he continually sees God as he is.
So, Mamaji, if I can ask others to speak, but to my mind, it means seeing our innermost loving self. That's the first thought which comes to me. But I would appreciate if others could join in.
Yeah. Seeing
Anybody?
God as he is. So,
So,
so we don't know what he is as of now. But
yes, Mamaji, we have to reach the sixth plane, and so it's beyond our it's beyond our mental and intellectual abilities. But I would appreciate if somebody else could join, add, clarify. Anybody? Somebody? Kama?
Jai Baba.
Yeah, please.
yeah,
Um, I don't know plain all the, I don't understand, but when you reach there, you see God as He is, part of you.
part of you.
Yeah. So you see God in you.
Okay, but if that was the case, the capital H would not have been there, I think.
What
God
should?
as he is. So God
Yeah.
as
So
God is.
yeah.
It
So
looks like
God
that.
is. I mean, because we are. How do I say it? there's illusion, we don't really. So by the time you reach here, you understand that the pure consciousness that resides within you is God, and you see him as he is.
Yes, yes, yes.
I don't
Yes,
know.
thank you.
I'm no Pandit. I'm just trying to tell you what
Okay,
I feel.
okay.
Nomita ji, I think what you said is on the right path. We are reading the path, and Mama ji, I think it's about going internal and
Yes,
seeing our
yes,
innermost loving self, and God is all within all of us. Is what we have, discussed. He's
yes,
within you, and we are only shrouded by the, uh, the, if I can call it, the dust of sanskaras, impressions. So he's already there
yes,
within you, but in the sixth plane, the freedom, the joy, and illumination that the soul experiences are all greatly enhanced as the mind is in direct contact with transcendental divine consciousness. That's what uh, Namita ji also mentioned about divine consciousness
yes,
and transcendental divine consciousness. I think this is a very important, terms, because you're going from the realm or the world of illusion to the world of reality, and there are two different paradigms is what I can understand. Happy if anybody else could add, please. uh, Normally, does that clarify or does it?
Where is
yes, yes,
Professor
yes, yes.
Emeritus? Where is Professor
Okay.
Emeritus?
He is in the deep
Kamakuti
woods of
Krishnamurti.
He's at Kempty Falls. Yesterday's information.
Empty Fall.
But Kamakoti Krishnamurti is our professor.
Go to
Yes.
person when we get in doubt.
So, shall we leave it as a question to
Yes,
be
yes, yes,
later on, and we'll move on? And
yes.
yeah, Nomita ji, I'll proceed. Okay.
Proud.
All that the individual enjoys in the mental realm is still not self sustained, but is continually supplied by the never failing emanations from the transcendental Godhead. Although the mind is completely surcharged with the heavenly abundance which descends upon it from God, nevertheless, it constantly recognizes its utter dependence upon the renewal which comes to it from above. The higher realm of mind is no less dependent upon the transcendent Godhead than are the lower realms of energy and matter for the individual, though enjoying perpetually the free life of the spirit, still has not attained unity with the Godhead. He has not yet transcended duality nor realized himself as the infinite one. In short, man on the gross plane makes indirect use of energy and mind through the gross sphere, and he can experience only such joy, power, and knowledge as the limitations of the gross permit. Man on the subtle plane uses energy directly but uses mind indirectly through the subtle plane. Also, his joy, peace, and understanding are still severely curtailed by the fact that he cannot make direct contact with the mind itself. Man on the mental plane can use energy as well as mind directly. Thus, he enjoys immeasurable power, knowledge, and bliss. But inasmuch as these are gifts from the Godhead, he still has a sense of dependence. He experiences the attributes of divinity as reflected in the mental spheres, but they do not originate in him. Even when man is able to make direct use of the mind, he falls short of that ultimate experience of knowing himself as the infinite Godhead. Although the individual experiences uninterrupted self fulfillment owing to his absorption in the replenishing divinity, still he must transcend the mind completely if he chooses to realize himself as the unlimited and eternal truth, power, and bliss of God. At this stage, the traveler sees God as the sole reality, but he may remain absorbed in his sight or sights, or he may cross the final gulf and become one with God. So, if I may add, this is a stage where we can see God, but we have not yet got uh, merged in Him, or we have not got the union with Him. In the final and third phase of the spiritual journey, called Hakikat, man becomes one with God as the infinite truth. This realization is self sustained. Man's consciousness is now completely one with the illimitable truth of the conscious God. The individualized soul has completely transcended the mind and established unity with the Godhead, thereby realizing itself to be the fountainhead of infinite love, infinite peace, infinite bliss, infinite power, and infinite knowledge. These attributes are now no longer received by the individualized soul as emanations from the transcendent Godhead, but are experienced as being the soul's own inalienable characteristics. Nor is the state of superabundance merely one of self sustained and unmarred spiritual sufficiency. It is the spontaneous overflowing in which the divine consciousness sheds the glory of its superabundant life upon one and all. In this state, God knows himself as God. The goal has been reached. To recapitulate, the realization of God as He is has required the complete surrenderance of the false individuality of the separate I. All sense of separateness and duality is only illusion, sustained by the sanskaras, impressions of the ego life, and expressed through lust, hate, and greed. Through a pure life of selfless love and service, and by the grace of God or a perfect master, it is possible to brush away these limiting sanskaras. By transcending the illusory veil of separateness, the individualized soul comes to know itself as identical with God, who is the sole reality. God realization, which is achieved at the end of the last phase of the first journey and on the seventh plane of consciousness, in which the mental sphere is completely transcended, is the goal of life. It is the reason why the universe came into existence. God realization is sometimes mistakenly considered to be the selfish aim of the limited individual, while in reality there is no room for any selfishness or limited individuality in God realization. On the contrary, it is the final aim of the limited and narrow life of the separate ego. God realization not only results in the attainment by the individual of an inviolable unity with all life, but also in his dynamic expression of his final realization of truth through a spontaneous and undivided life of love, peace, and harmony. The life of the God realized is a pure blessing to all humanity. So this is, I like to repeat this. The life of the God realized is a pure blessing to all humanity. Within the state of God realization, God is known and experienced to be the only reality, as there remains nothing further to know. One aspect of his divine consciousness is omniscience. Since God is experienced as being the only one without a second, having no rival to overcome and no limitations to transcend, the individualized soul realizes the second aspect of supreme consciousness to be omnipotence. Since God is also experienced as unconditional and spontaneous joy continually welling up within the soul, the third aspect of divine consciousness is realized to be unlimited bliss. These attributes of omniscience, omnipotence, and unlimited bliss are not divisible parts within infinity, but differentiated qualities of one indivisible infinity. Being indivisible, no one of them is in any way curtailed by another. Since they interpret each other completely, none can or does exist without the others. So they're all part of the whole. Any questions, comments? In God consciousness, to know is to exist as blissful power. To exist as power is to know oneself as unbounded bliss. And to experience bliss is to be permeated by divine knowledge in which knower, known, and knowledge are all one. Any existence in
Uh,
which, yes, yes, Mamaji.
Ashok, uh, these three terms, omniscience, omnipotent, and unlimited bliss, we need to understand these things very clearly.
Yes.
So, can anyone sort of define what is omniscience, omnipotence, and bliss?
Anyone to add? Mamaji, omnipotence, I can clearly say it is that God is present everywhere. So that is,
Potency means it is the capability,
no,
capable to do anything. That is omnipotence, in my understanding. Omniscience is being present everywhere, or it is the single thing which encompasses the whole thing, whole cosmos, or whatever it is.
can somebody?
And
Yeah, please go ahead, go ahead.
and the when you have these capabilities, that being everywhere and being capable of doing anything, that is a state of bliss, probably. Bliss is the, I don't know how to define bliss as such. Bliss in the gross world, what we are seeing is a minute part of it is the happiness that we have. But to define bliss, it is quite difficult. I don't know how to define it unless we get that bliss itself, I think.
So, Mamaji, if I may answer, omniscience
Yes.
means infinite knowledge,
Ah,
and omnipotence, as you rightly said, is infinite power
power.
and unlimited bliss. So this
Yeah.
refers to infinite uh,
Knowledge,
knowledge, power,
power, and
bliss,
bliss.
which is also there in the prayer, the
Yes.
Bhagavad prayer. So, would that clarify?
Yes, yes, to a large extent. Thank you.
Yes. So, anybody else wants to say something? So I should start. Should I start in God consciousness? Is
Ah,
to exist. In God consciousness, to know is to exist as blissful power. To exist as power is to know oneself as unbounded bliss. And to experience bliss is to be permeated by divine knowledge in which knower, known, and knowledge are all one. Any existence in which power is limited, knowledge imperfect, or joy beclouded is a product of false imagination and cannot satisfy the earnest seeker after God. Thus, in the truth consciousness of Hakikat, God knows himself as having infinite attributes, but he has no consciousness of the universe. In a few cases, consciousness of the universe returns to the God realized soul without in any way obscuring the totality of his divine knowledge. This first affirmation of God consciousness in the universe may be said to constitute the first journey of complete divine knowledge known as Bakayat. And there is a footnote. So, Bakayat, this is the state of the Jivan Mukta, a more complete integration into the activity in the world of duality is achieved by the perfect master in the state of Kutubiyat described below. Conscious now of the universe through the being of the Jivan Mukta or Azad Mutlaq or Bakabila. God does not regard it as other than himself. Not only is his knowledge not handicapped by consciousness of the world, it, God's knowledge, uses the shadow, creation, which it has created as a medium through which it finds expression. In this state of Bakayat, God only knows himself as God, but also as everything he now experiences, also as everything. He now experiences his own infinite attributes of omniscience, omnipotence, and unbounded bliss, also in and through the consciousness of the universe. God knows himself as being everything and everything as being himself. His knowledge of himself includes the knowledge of everything in illusion. God enjoys the infinite and unlimited attributes as in the first state of Hakikat, but their expression within the illusion of duality is naturally determined by the earthly vehicle in which the individualized soul functions. The God realized Jivan Mukta, though living in a world of duality, is aware only of the unimpaired unity which sustains and pervades the universe. Such a one, such a one experiences constantly the love which knows no limitation through time, circumstance, or mood. Though the Jivan Mukta lives and functions in the world of duality, his consciousness dwells beneath the appearance of things in the underlying reality of his self in God. In this manner, such a soul creates no cleavage between the illusory and the real world, nor does it, being in the world, constitute for him any limitations on the spontaneous flow of divine love. On the contrary, the world, with all its dual aspects, becomes the medium through which his infinite love operates automatically. In this phase of realization, the individual enjoys the limitless attributes of God but does not feel impelled to use them for the benefit of others. He has become fully conscious of his impersonal divinity, which automatically permeates and controls all aspects of the world of the universe, and therefore he does not feel moved to intervene in the world in the affairs of the world. So, any thoughts, any correlations with what we have read earlier?
There is an asterisk on realization. You can read the
I will do
mentioned
that.
portion.
I will do that, Mamaji. Yes, I realize that. I'll be. I'll just read that. Okay. So that is the Jivan Mukta state. The soul has returned to consciousness of the world of duality, but the focus of consciousness of the Jivan Mukta wanders between duality and God absorption. See, God speaks, page 171, 172. So, so there is a correlation, cross reference to God speaks, page 171 and 172 as well.
Okay.
So now I suppose it's so. So God speaks of course is the master reference. Baba, I think here is just trying to elaborate, clarify this phase of realization. Any other thing? Anybody else? Mamaji?
It is sort of an brief explanation for the mortals like us from God speaks. So
Yes.
from plane 1 to plane 7. Yes.
Yes. Anybody else? Oh, okay, I'll continue. Hmm? Active interest in cosmic processes or activities of the illusory universe is possible only when the third journey from Bakayat to Kutubiyat or Sadguru, perfect master state, is completed. In this state, the fullness of divine knowledge, power, and bliss is not only experienced completely, but is also dynamically expressed. Here, the unlimited individuality of the perfect master participates fully in the life of the entire universe. In this state, God not only knows himself as God and lives as God, but works as God, coordinating the truth he has realized with the process of the universe. Thus, at the end of this third journey of divine consciousness, God takes active interest in the spiritual earnings of other souls and extends his help in their onward ascent. In this state, as the perfect master, he is no longer detached from the happenings of the world, and the cosmic processes and events of the world are no longer left solely to the discretion of impersonal divinity. God himself has become a person who is simultaneously fully divine and fully human, and he takes under his personal and conscious supervision the groping, struggling life streams within the universe. The Kutubiyat or Sadguru state, perfect masterhood, is truly a state of personal godhood. His omniscience and unlimited love impel the Kutub or Sadguru to use his unlimited power freely for the spiritual benefit of all who deserve his grace. He goes halfway to meet aspiring souls and he accentuates their progress, communicating to them his boundless, overflowing love to the extent that they are capable of receiving it. This is a state in which God offers himself to himself in measureless abundance in and through the universe of duality. Throughout his expression of personal interest in the life of the universe, the Sadguru never becomes entangled in duality. He is never bound in any way to the world of form in which he is expressing his dynamic and unlimited personality. When his divine game in the world of form is over, he drops the link to his own bodies, physical, subtle, and mental, and with the universe without sense of loss or pain. I'll just repeat the sentence again. When this divine game in the world of form is over, he drops the link to his own bodies, physical, subtle, and mental, and with the universe without sense of loss or pain. He withdraws from the scene of his divinely expressed life in illusion and draws to a close his creative manifestation in the universe. Withdrawal from participation in the universe of duality does not in any way impair his consciousness of divine knowledge, nor his conscious, constant, and unbreakable experience of infinite power and bliss. He continues to remain conscious reality. Activity in the world constitutes only action in an illusory universe. Withdrawal from it is only withdrawal from the unreal through which he chose to manifest for the liberation of those still in bondage and is termed the fourth and last journey. So I take a pause here if and open for any questions, comments, discussions. Anybody? So there are no questions. Moving ahead.
So these four journeys we have to clearly crystallize in our mind.
Yes.
I have a few doubts about the second journey. What is the end of the first journey and what is the second journey? is not so clear with me. I've opened the four journeys chart in God Speaks. It is on page 38, 138.
One second. If you have that, I just have to get God Speaks. Uh, uh,
I have it here.
would you like to read it for us?
Yes, yes. The whole chart is, say, it is first journey starts with the gross world, subtle world, and the mental world. At the end of the sixth plane, we jump into the seventh plane, Fana. Very few persons arrive here at the end of the first journey. As God experiences infinite power, knowledge, and bliss. This is known as passing away into God, becoming God. That is the first journey. And from here, the second journey is Baka, which very, very few persons go on to. As man and God experiences infinite power, knowledge, and bliss. And this is also known as abiding in God or being in God. So, what is the actual difference between the first and the second? I am unable to capture now. I will have to read through the chapter once again. The third journey is the journey of the perfect master who is able to come back into illusion and live in the illusory world with his realization and also help all the aspiring souls to do their journey better. That is the third journey that we can understand quite well. And after his dropping of the body, the fourth journey, that is passing away as God. So Fana, Baka, Kutubiyat, and then passing away as God. These are the four stages in the journey: first, second, third, and fourth. So the exact difference between the first and the second, I am unable to grasp. Kama Koti, can you uh, do some explanation?
Yeah.
Give us clarity on this.
So I just want to
Jai
add.
Baba, can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
Kama. Yes.
Yeah. I'm in the train, but let's see.
Okay.
I think that in the charts in God Speaks, there is Fana, which is basically Nirvana. But I think the end of the first journey is Fana Phila. And then Fana Phila is only God consciousness state. Then you have Baka, which is basically Paramahamsa state, where you're alternating between Fana, Phila, and Baka, which is God consciousness and creation consciousness, starts with the Paramahamsa. Now, Jivan Mukta is basically passive in his activity with the world. So, Jivan Mukta is simultaneous, both creation and God consciousness, similar to Perfect Master. But the Perfect Master is actively participating in the journey. That is, he is helping ordinary human souls. And then the fourth journey is dropping off the body of the perfect master of the avatar. So that is how you can look at it. I think the charts will help you better when you read the 10 states of consciousness in God Speaks, the last 3 or 4 pages. Read the state, I think, state 8, 9, and 10. That will become very clear. Jai Baba.
So thank you,
Okay. Thank
Kama.
you.
Thank you, Kama. Mamaji, if I may add to all that Kama has said, uh, if you go to God Speaks, the chart 11, which is a summary of uh, the entire, it's one page where we have uh, a lot of correlations done. Uh,
Yes. Yes.
so chart 11 uh, is talking about, Fana, Fila, Fana, and then the various, Mazube Kamil, Mazube Salik, Azade Mutlaq, or Brahmi Bhut, Paramahansa, and Jivan Mukta. and
Yes, yes, yes.
it could give you some answers. If you read the charts, in chart 6, what is mentioned there, along with chart 11, probably it could answer some of your queries. Is my
Yes, yes.
is
I
my
will go through that.
is my very limited correlation I could do. Uh, I'm open for somebody else to add to what has been discussed, but I think we need to revisit this chart along with chart 11.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to go back and see these things once again.
Personally, I felt that chart 11 is a got lots of terms, all the Sufi Vedantic or near Vedantic terms, mystic terms are, you know, the synonyms are there which can help us
Yes, yes.
better grasp. Does it help? I hope it helps you in your journey.
Okay, thank you.
So moving on, where did I stop? Okay,
We
God
ended the
Himself.
chapter, I think.
Yeah, we ended the chapter. Yes, so we have ended this chapter. Uh, so this chapter is, you know, on this path is guiding us to go internal and seek our
Jai
internal.
Baba, am I audible?
Yes, please, Khalid. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
you're audible, Khalid.
in
Yes.
reference to what, yeah, in reference to what Mamaji inquired, I find a small reference, from where we can really build up inquisitiveness to find out. It's on page 111 of Listen Humanity. There it gives a very small brief. It has a bifurcation of the first journey and the second journey and how it goes about. So if we can just revert back to page 111,
I will.
death and immortality. So it's there from the second paragraph. If we can read it,
I'll
I
just
think
go back.
we'll get some idea. Yeah,
Give me a moment. Just a moment. Page 111 on the hard copy.
yeah, 111 of the hard copy.
Uh, 111, okay.
I should be there. Uh,
You
okay.
are faster than me. Okay.
Okay. No, no, Mamaji, just learning. Life in ignorance. Sorry, which one is the first
Yeah,
journey?
yeah,
The first journey.
yeah.
Shall
Now,
we read?
if we can begin from the individual who has achieved realization,
Okay.
the,
So
the para after that, if we read on from there on, I think we'll get some idea on what Mamaji was inquiring. Maybe we can build up from there.
correct. So shall I read, or would you want to read, Khalid?
Please,
Yes,
please,
yes,
you
yes.
can proceed. Please
Okay. I'll read.
proceed. Sure.
The individual who has achieved realization of the individual who has achieved realization of the truth is initiated into eternal and unlimited life for the limiting ego mind with all its attendant sanskaras has undergone a death that is final. In this process, the limited individuality is shed and the soul is invested with unlimited divine individuality. This may be termed as the journey of the soul, but it is by no means the first journey. The first journey consisted in the evolving of the consciousness through the evolutionary process, starting in the most rudimentary sub-gaseous forms and ending in the attainment of full consciousness in the human form. This journey extends from the initial attainment of consciousness by the individual soul to birth of the limited human individuality, in which full consciousness has been achieved, but a consciousness still clouded and ridden with sanskaras. The second journey of the soul consists in the involution of the now fully evolved consciousness through the removal of clouds of sanskaras. The removal requires the effort of numberless lifetimes and lasts from birth of the limited human individuality to its termination in the unlimited truth. This second journey brings the individual to the unlimited and untrammeled state of infinite existence or immortality and is considered in greater detail in chapter 6. The terminus of this journey is known in Sufi literature as Fanafila, the final annihilation of the limited ego in the consciousness state of God. Uh, Mamaji, everybody does, so it's basically the second journey is Fanafila.
Yes, yes. I can just continue for some more time.
Yes, I will continue. Allow me to continue. Yes. At the end of the first journey, the soul becomes consciousness or conscious of Maya or the illusion of duality. This domain of Maya has only imaginary existence. The entire universe, thus in reality, is only a zero, but this zero exists for the fully evolved consciousness of the individual human being. Uh, this also reminds me to one more chart where there is a specific bifurcation of the world of illusion and reality. It is there in God Speaks, probably. Yes, it's chart 7 on page 155 of God Speaks. They have shown that the world of illusion and the world of reality are two different worlds. That chart 7 is got a title God is reality and all else is illusion. So, and there's also a bifurcation of the small body and the small soul getting merged with the gross soul in the gross sphere, subtle sphere, and the mental sphere. So probably that will give answers to. I'll just
Okay,
read.
uh, I
I'll
think we need to.
Yeah, yes, yes, Mamaji. Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead.
I think we need to do a sort of a clear homework to clarify this. I would try to attend to this in some
Okay.
time. Okay.
For the benefit of all, I'll read the last paragraph, which is
Yes.
about second journey of Fanafila. Maya gives to the life of the individual all the meaning that it has, and the imaginary universe of Maya continues to have a semblance of reality and significance until the wayfarer arrives at the terminus of the second journey of Fanafila. We stop
Okay.
here, and as Mamaji has rightly suggested, we need to do a lot of reading and homework and correlation. So moving on, I can get back.
Thank you, colleague, for the
Oh yes,
connecting reference. Yes, yes.
yes, Khalid. Uh, Really
Yeah,
appropriate,
Jed, Jed.
and also it has got reference to chapter 6, which we have just concluded. Anybody else would like to add on value add um, to what has been discussed, and uh, any observations, comments, while I just get back to on the screen with uh, to chapter 7, our next chapter. Anybody? Somebody? So those 7 paths, guiding maps are also there. 7 stages, the 7, uh, you know, so, sorry, having overshot. So if there are no questions, I think the thought that we have to do our own reading and homework. I go on with the next chapter in part 2, this chapter 7, attitudes for aspirants and other groups. In previous chapters, general outlines have been given of the sufferings which finally impel the individual to embark upon the journey. In addition, the major paths and high roads were described by which a great majority of seekers travel, and the states and stages through which the aspirant gradually progresses were briefly sketched. The entire spiritual process should never be regarded as one that can be described in intellectual terms, grasped by the mind, and followed as a personal discipline. In many ways, it constitutes the abandoning of all the previous means by which the individual had thought to achieve lasting peace. In other ways, it is essentializing and enlightened use of those same methods but with a new sense of their utility. So, probably unlearn, relearn, and upskill. The spiritual attitude represents nothing essentially new in the material life of the individual, but is rather a reorganization and reinterpretation of all that has existed in his life and an infusion of new meaning into the present and future. In achieving this reorientation, the aspirant often finds himself temporarily confused. One of these points of confusion concerns his attitude towards intellectuality, science, and technology. If the spiritual quest is to be real, it cannot be deflected by an obsession with this vital nerve network of modern civilization. In some ways, the aspirant must place it in proper perspective with the totality of human development, and thereby be neither hypnotized nor repelled by it. Intellect is reserved, so to speak, by nature for man. To have intellect, one must be a human being, regardless of how keen and quick that intellect may be, though it will always remain just one of the stepping stones to wisdom, inspiration, illumination, knowledge, and at last realization of the truth. To keep playing on the same on to keep playing on the stepping stone, however polished it may be, is like sitting tight on a heap of hoarded treasure. Like everything else, intellect can be used as well as misused. The deeper the intelligence, the greater one's responsibility to discriminate between essential and non-essential service and disservice, progress and retrogression. The task of the aspirant is to use intellect as a tool, not to be overcome by it. So, this aspect is again reiterated here. The task of the aspirant is to use intellect as a tool, not to overcome by it. Any comments, observations? Often one hears in religious discussion the oh, sorry. Often one hears in religious discussion of the opposition between matter and spirit. There is no fundamental opposition between matter and spirit. Like the closely knit elements of life and form in a person, the spiritual and material aspects of human life are closely united. Realization of this would eliminate erroneous contrasting concepts such as God and man, one and many, light and darkness, etc., all of which spring from the illusion of duality. The fundamental link between spirit and matter can be seen in the necessary connection between ideas and deeds. Mere playing with spiritual ideas without putting them into action is as unproductive as emphasizing the material at the expense of the spiritual. The simplicity of the real solution to all problems makes that solution increasingly baffling. The real solution lies in elimination of all interest. This makes man practical in the truest sense of the word and gives him strength to face the facts concerning body and soul. So here I have a question to everybody. So what do you all make out of this? And so besides knowledge, what else is required to be on the path as an attribute for an aspirant?
Love.
Love, yes. Anybody
I
else?
think I have marked two sentences. I will read this. The
Yes.
fundamental link between spirit and matter can be seen in the necessary connection between ideas and deeds. So we are always in ideas, but never in the deeds connected with it. The last sentence of the same paragraph, the real solution lies in the elimination of the self interest. This makes man practical in the truest sense of the word and gives him strength to face the facts concerning body and soul.
Well said, Mamaji. Anything else you want to
So,
add? Anybody else? So Mamaji rightly said, as you said, the fundamental link between spirit and matter can be seen in necessary connection between ideas and deeds. So
yes,
it's not just the knowledge or the ideas. You also have to put it
uh,
in practice by deeds.
practice by action. Okay.
Action, yes. I meant that. Yes, action. Rightly said, Mamaji. Anybody else? So I'll move on if there are no questions or comments. The aspirant need not worry about the opposition between spirit and matter, but should rather concern himself with the proper use of the one as the vehicle of the other. Then he will realize the higher ideals which relate to the actions of everyday life. The living spirit behind love, service, and brotherhood then blossoms out in accomplished deeds and is no longer empty words and academic theories reserved for armchair practice. God's infinite beauty, power, and bliss are experienced with full consciousness in art, science, literature, nature, and all walks of life. Wow. I'll allow me to read this last line again. Very profound. God's infinite beauty, power, and bliss are experienced with full consciousness in art, science, literature, nature, and all walks of life. Although the unconscious slavery of modern man to the industrial age is a serious matter, the emancipation of mankind from physical and economic slavery is a comparatively easy affair. The real slavery, because it is the most cruel and destructive of all, is the intellectual bigotry which claims to possess an exclusive monopoly of all truth. It is people obsessed by such a belief who, when they happen to be in a position of material power, hasten the downfall of a laboriously built civilization or the disintegration of a living religion. Man can be redeemed from all types of bondage physical, mental, spiritual, social, political, moral sooner or later. But the redemption of man from the self imposed shackles of intellectual self sufficiency, uncritically accepted ideals, and a dry religious heritage is a task which is well nigh superhuman. Here is the real task of the aspirant to pierce through his own layers of self imposed self sufficiency and insensitivity so that he may expose a layer of vital awareness to the world about him, which would teach him if it could. Allow me, Baba, I am prompted to add that one has to pierce the veil of ignorance. Often the aspirant is concerned in the early phases of his awakening by his attitude towards established religions and their rituals. All of these have a tendency to encourage the spirit of love and worship, and as such they help to a limited extent in wearing out the ego shell in which human consciousness is caught. But if they are followed unintelligently and mechanically, the inner spirit of love and worship dries up. Then they harden the ego shell instead of wearing it out. So I have a question. There is a reference in discourses, also maybe in God Speaks. Can anybody recall what this paragraph refers to? There's a specific mention about these aspects.
I'm not getting any idea.
No problem.
Okay.
I think it refers to karma kanda and the the futility of rituals and religions if they are not performed with the full love and dedication and worship. I think it's there. We can look it up later, but that's my thought. Anybody can add if they want.
That's why Baba is the say latest operating system for
Oh,
spirituality. That concept. So we get all of us are say from birth we are molded into some sort of a practice in life. So depending on what sort of which religion we are with or what group we are under. So we have to say get out of that shackle and then look at the real spirit with love and worship and not with rituals. So that is what he is stressing here. So that's why what Kama always refers to as a new operating system for spirituality is Baba.
and
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba Mamaji, and I love that LOS, a good one. Uh, Rituals and ceremonies cannot carry one very far towards the path, and and if they are unintelligently followed, they bind us as much as any other unintelligent action. In fact, when they are deprived of all inner life, they are in a sense more dangerous than any other unintelligent action because they are pursued in the belief that they help towards God realization. Due to this element of self delusion, lifeless forms and ceremonies become a sidetrack to the path. Through mere force of habit, one can become so attached to these external forms that intense suffering may be required to dispel their imaginary value. Often the aspirant becomes discouraged when he begins to understand how very long and difficult the path is. But these are persons who are concentrating only on jumping to the final goal and have not yet been caught up in the absorbing challenges which call for the greatest ingenuity at every step of the way. When the aspirant meets the challenge of life's games, it becomes so exhilarating that there is little inclination to worry whether the goal is one or a crore of lifetimes away. A healthy approach to life contains the automatic answer to pessimism over the distance traveled. The man of the world believes that to have understood a thing intellectually is to have learned it. The true lesson in action, though, involves the wearing out of sanskaras and the wants they engender. To learn in this sense, it is not enough to comprehend intellectually. Learning may be a lengthy process which moves slowly through many repetitions of difficult situations. Learning has not been accomplished until one has been freed from all emotional entanglements. This is almost, if not entirely, impossible without the aid of a master. It is for this reason that when the aspirant realizes the master's true contribution, he greets the master with much joy. All action except that which is intelligently designed to attain God realization, binds consciousness. It is only an expression of accumulated ignorance, but sorry, it is not only an expression of accumulated ignorance, but also a further addition to that accumulated ignorance. Sometimes the pilgrim becomes so weary of recognizing that each act, instead of unwinding a knot in the inner being, has only tightened it harder that he wonders whether it is wise to continue a life of action. In many ways, action is preferable to unintelligent action, for it has at least the merit of not creating sanskaras. Even good action creates sanskaras and adds to the complications created by past actions. All life is an effort to achieve freedom from self created entanglement. It is a desperate struggle to undo what had been done in ignorance, to throw away the accumulated burden of the past, to seek rescue from the debris piled high from temporary achievements and failures. Life strives to unwind the limiting sanskaras and find release from the mazes of its own making, to ensure that its further creation might spring directly from the heart of eternity and bear the stamp of the unhampered freedom and intrinsic richness of being that knows no limitation. So I pause here for um, any thoughts, ideas, comments. So moving on, action that is aimed at attaining God. Sorry, somebody is. Sorry. Can I hear a voice or do I hear a voice or a mic?
What was your question?
No, my question was that if you have any comments or because here they're talking about unintelligent action and intelligent action. So my question was, if anybody has got any comments, thoughts, or observations? That was my.
Yeah, Baba, I think it comes down to the same thing that Mamaji was asking. What is it beyond the intellectual knowledge, the divine knowledge that we have? Not sure I should call it spiritual knowledge. Baba in Everything and Nothing talks about one is the material knowledge, which has to do with the laws of matter, and one is about spiritual knowledge, which is about the laws of spirit. So, what we can call as the inner spirit and the outer matter, what we call as the universal laws of nature. Both these are important to understand for a human being, especially in the 21st century, when you have access to this information. Because we are bombarded by technology and information and data, but we are not able to process the data into knowledge, which will help us personally in our journey. So, intelligent action and unintelligent action is a very important component of every individual human being in the waking state. As soon as a man wakes up, there are three kinds of action: thinking, speaking, and doing, which creates big, strong, and powerful impressions, which we know as good sanskaras and bad sanskaras. So, what we understand from Action Inaction chapter is that intelligent action is unwinding sanskaras, not reacting, but responding intelligently. And unintelligent action is reaction to our past sanskaras, thereby creating fresh new sanskaras, which is called spending sanskaras. So these are the only two main activities, or you could say X and Y variable that we are dealing with. And then underneath comes all other types of action, whether you call this intelligent inaction or unintelligent inaction, and so on and so forth. So the point of the matter here is all these readings are good in terms of inspiring us, what we call as right knowledge. 1% inspiration, as Thomas Edison said. But knowledge does not become right knowledge till you put it into action. Action can be in terms of thoughts, words, and deeds, which Baba calls at love and selfless service. So the 99% action is unique for all of us, whereas the 1% right knowledge, which includes both material knowledge, laws of matter, and spiritual knowledge, which has to do with the laws of spirit, which we understand from knowing what are the six planes of involution. And also, Baba has talked us about the four journeys of a Fanafila and a Bakapila individual. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Kama. Uh, so we have around 5 minutes left for this session. Uh, I'll continue reading if there are no.
You can continue reading and then stop at the messages, different types of messages starts in the next page. So till
Okay.
that place we can finish it.
Okay. I think I start from here. All life is.
Ah.
Yeah. All life is an effort to achieve freedom from self-created entanglement. It is a desperate struggle to undo what had been done in ignorance, to throw away the accumulated burden of the past, to seek rescue from the debris piled high from temporary achievements and failures. Life strives to unwind the limiting sanskaras and find release from the mazes of its own making, to ensure that its further creations might spring directly from the heart of eternity and bear the stamp of the unhampered freedom and intrinsic richness of being that knows no limitation. Action that is aimed at attaining God is truly intelligent and spiritually fruitful because it brings release from bondage. It is second only to that action which springs spontaneously from the state of divine knowledge itself. All other forms of action, however good or bad, and however effective or ineffective from the worldly point of view, contribute to a bondage of the soul and as such are inferior to inaction. Inaction is less helpful than intelligent action, but is better than unintelligent action, for it amounts to the non doing of that which could have created a binding. The transition from unintelligent action to intelligent action, that is, from binding karma to unbinding karma, is often through inaction. This is the stage when unintelligent action has stopped because of critical doubt, and intelligent action has not yet begun because adequate momentum has not been achieved. This special type of inaction, which plays a definite part in the progress on the path, should not be confused with ordinary inaction that springs from inertia or fear of life. The state of inaction that springs from critical doubt gives way sooner or later to intelligent action, and intelligent action in turn is dissolved in the final goal of perfect inaction. Perfect inaction does not mean inactivity. When the self is absent, one achieves inaction in one's every action, however excessive it may be. Various of the yogas, such as Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, can be instrumental in achieving the end of all action by practicing inaction in the midst of intense activity. The only way to live a life of absolute inaction is to surrender completely to a perfect master. Then one dies entirely to oneself and lives only for the perfect master, acting and fulfilling the dictates of the beloved one. For each group, each profession, each race has its own problems in pointing itself towards the beginning stages of the path. The following brief messages are intended for various of these groups. So allow me to read these messages, or so that
No, we can do it in the next session.
okay,
I
yes.
think we can
Right.
stop it here.
Yeah, we just have a minute, uh, a minute or two left. So we'll do this. Rightly said. Thank you for suggestion, Mamaji. We will do this messages in the next session, but perhaps we can pre-read and come.
Uh,
So I stop here. Uh, I'm just underlying the last line. Uh, you can make some reference at your end also, because.
yeah.
So thank you, Mamaji, for this, for pointing it out. So anybody else wants to? So what are the key takeaways from the last chapter and whatever we have read from here? Uh, Mamaji, would you like to summarize, or anybody else can add to him?
Someone who has not interacted today can do it.
Yes. So
SNSD,
Khalid had raised
maybe
a hand. Khalid, I sort of missed it. Uh, Khalid, uh, to say something. Okay, then anybody else can just.
अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
yes.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. So I think there's.
Ashokji, you read so beautifully. My mind was silent. I was just dissolved in every reading. So very little thinking actually. So Jai Baba.
Oh, I just did a little
Thank
part.
you, Ashokji.
Nene, Are, Karthik, I'm grateful to the group that, I wake up every Saturday, Sunday and look forward to this. And thanks for listening to me patiently. I hope the audio and video everything was good.
I think the key action for all of us, myself more importantly than others, is bring this knowledge into action. So that's I think today's takeaway.
Rightly
Live
said.
fast.
Let
We
it
should
be
all
through
live.
inaction and intelligent action.
Yes.
Yeah.
In action and intelligent action. Yeah.
I
Thank you.
think Nomita ji had something to say. I didn't hear that. Nomita ji, can you repeat?
I wanted to say, Ashokji, you are phenomenal, and I bow down to Baba in you.
Naini, that is just the Baba in you. Thank you.
Baba in me loves the Baba in you.
Yes.
Yes.
These
Thank you.
bodies are just scaffoldings.
So we have a soul karmic connection. Thank you.
Yes,
Jai
we
Baba.
do.
Just,
Jai
just
Baba.
one
Okay,
line
Jai
there.
Baba.
One line
Sanjay.
this morning on
Good
our
morning.
yeah. Can I?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
yes, please.
Yes.
During a discussion about erecting a building, expense and appearance, Meher Baba tossing a rubber ball against a wall. He started doing, began
Yes.
tossing rubber ball against a wall. He communicated. The ball will rebound to you with as much force as that with which it is thrown. The ball, the wall is firm, stationary, and inactive, doing nothing. And in that respect, it is like Sadguru. It is for you to determine what force you use to throw the ball against the wall so that when it rebounds, it may be caught. I am just like the wall, doing nothing. You have to throw the ball and catch it. So throw it in such a way that you can easily catch it without getting tired. Remember to look before you leave. Avtar Meher Baba ki is
Avatar
all
Meher
for
Baba ki jai.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
Beautiful
Jai.
message and summary. Beautiful.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Kama, anybody wants to add something?
Khalid Bhai's hand is up. I don't know if it's just by mistake.
Yeah. Khalid, I saw his hand. Khalid bhai, hello. Please bolna hai.
Yeah, that was earlier. I wanted to jump in that.
Okay.
was earlier. Sorry, I should have put it down.
No, no, I missed it because I'm only seeing the screen when I was reading and I couldn't go back to the screen. Huh? So it's my sort of,
Not an issue, not issue, Ashok. I
Khalidji,
think I jumped in.
Khalidji, please
Yes, Namita
bow
ji.
down to please bow down to Baba at his samadhi for us.
Oh,
Yes.
Put your
All of you
forehead
are
on.
there in my mind while my head bow down.
wow.
Yes, put your on the stone. Put your head and say that we submit to you, Baba.
So Nomita ji,
Definitely,
you
but
put
we are not allowed to enter the samadhi now. We just have to,
Okay, then you bow down outside.
do the darshan from outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely and surely I will, Namita ji.
Jai
so
Baba, you're so lucky.
yes, Nomita ji, you
Yeah,
put the icing on the
Baba's
cake.
grace.
Icing on the cake, but it has to be vegetarian cake.
Yes, yes, very good. No eggs, no eggs.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
enjoy
Jai
your
Baba.
Sunday.
Jai
Yes,
Baba.
Jai Baba.
enjoy
Everybody.
Okay,
your.
okay, 1 minute.
Yes, yes.
Last week was the